Hello, 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 and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Amber Slocum, and today I have something super awesome for you. Ross is a really good friend of mine, and he is in the midst of launching something super awesome and super exciting. And I thought of all the people to have on, he would be the one to talk to us about what he's launching. So Ross, if you will take a second and introduce yourself and just kind of tell us a little bit about your background and yeah, about you.
Well, thank you very much, Amber. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Ross Marker. A few personal details. I'm 61 years old. I stand 6'8". Until I was 58 years old, I was lazy and weird. But when I was 58, I got formally tested and diagnosed and found out that what I actually am is several flavors of neurodivergent. I have been a self-help dilettante all my life, reading books and trying to know all the answers. I made myself into a bookshelf. Um, it wasn't until after my wife passed that I actually see what worked and learning the difference between knowing the answers and living the solutions. Along the way, I took notes and engineered a system that worked for me to build my life on a much more solid foundation. I call that system the Plus One Good Formula, and I am now prepared to offer it as a 6-week course. And I'm really looking forward to doing that with my first flight and seeing what transpires for my clients.
That is super interesting. So you actually, this is something I didn't know about you. You actually didn't develop this until more recently then. How long ago? I'm sorry to hear about your wife. When did that happen? How long has she been gone now?
People joke about the ball and chain, or they wince and say, "Yeah, my better half." Darla was my angel. She was my better 80%. No joke about it. She was my human credential. When she passed, I was devastated.
Yeah.
And a friend got uncomfortable with where I was in my grief. And so he tried humor to dig me out. He said, "Dude, you know the first rule of holes, right?" I said, "No, what?" He said, "When you're in one, stop digging."
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
I
Having somebody
wish
throw you a
I
rope
could
helps too.
take credit for this. I wish well, I wish I could take credit for what came to me next, but it came from somewhere back beyond. And I looked at him and I said, "When would be the best time to check my foundations?"
Mm. Mhm.
And that was the seed for actually starting to build the Plus One Good formula because I had to rediscover who I was beyond and outside of who I was when I was married to Darla.
How long were you guys married?
We were together for 15 years, married for 14. She got
Wow.
her first cancer diagnosis about 7.5 years into it,
Gee.
and went 4 bouts with endometrial cancer until finally her body couldn't fight it anymore.
Wow.
And she passed in October of 2009.
That's a lot, especially endometrial cancer. I mean, that's a devastating situation.
Well, the first time we got the diagnosis, I was extremely unhappy because we were trying to conceive,
Mm,
and it meant that she was going to have surgery that would make sure we could never have kids together.
right.
She'd had two from a prior marriage, I'd had one from a prior marriage myself. So we thought the parts worked.
Right.
But after
Right.
trying and we didn't conceive, she went to a doctor and got tested, and that's when she got her first diagnosis,
Wow.
which was an extreme challenge to my faith.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I could see that for
Then
sure.
she had, yeah, she had the surgery. They did some post-surgical tests. She came back negative, and we prayed gratitude that, hey, thank you, it's gone. You can
Right.
imagine my chagrin when it came back
Yeah.
and came back again.
Wow.
And when she died, I needed something because faith wasn't doing it.
Right. For sure. I can totally understand that for sure. So, okay. So tell me what kind of how this well, let's first start with what is plus one good? Tell me what that is. What exactly is it? And who is it
The,
best suited for?
the plus one good formula is best suited for those who, like me, need something that just plain works. A
Yeah.
mechanistic, simple, and clear set of principles on which people can build their own microscopic successes.
Mhm.
And from there, living intentionally and on purpose to their own ideas of what they want and what kind of core qualities they're coming from,
Yeah.
that they can build their own life the way they want to with their own rules, and that they can, in fact, recover and realign with their own personal power.
Okay, so help me understand this. Are you saying that you're going to walk people through trying to figure out? Because I think, like for me, after I had a child, my core values changed, right? And so, are you going to walk people through like how to discover what their values are at this time? Because I really do think the values change depending on your circumstances, right? Because I used to be
Not
super
necessarily.
religious and I'm not anymore. And so my values have shifted into a much more, I would say, liberal way of thinking, where I'm much more concerned about taking care of people who can't care for themselves.
Please allow me to reframe that and see if
Okay,
you can agree with it.
sure.
Your basic qualities have not changed. Your priorities among them might have.
Okay, that's fair. Absolutely.
You
Yeah,
still want to be kind, you still want to be helpful, you still want to be compassionate, and it's in a different framework for you now.
right. Okay, so you're
There
gonna
you
help
go.
people figure out kind of
I'm going to help people clarify their core qualities.
and priorities.
Then we can work on prioritization
Okay.
and how that might shift or might not, and what's most important for them.
Yeah.
This will not be me shooting on anybody.
Well, absolutely not. Sure. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so then, like, after you've got, let's say we figure out what those qualities are, we figure out what the priorities are, what's the next step?
From foundations, we come to origins, how we are, where we are, and how we're co
Mhm.
creating now.
Oh, okay.
After origins, we'll look at destinations.
That gave me
And this
goosebumps.
is where
Yeah, keep
this is
going.
where the destinations is where the whole shiny object syndrome versus what we truly want that is actually aligned with our core qualities. Because too often we get to buying into things that people tell us we should want,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and it's really
Mm-hmm.
not matching up for us because it's not aligned with who we are.
Right. Rather than a what we want, it's a what everyone's telling us we should want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of that going on.
Oh boy, let me tell you. um, all right. So now that we kind of understand like the basics of what it is, I'm curious about how has the plus one good formula improved your life? How has it shifted things within you?
Because I have been able to recover from so many failures at planners and journals and trackers and systems that should on me that I couldn't work with. And
Hmm.
I thought it was me failing. So finally, I broke down and built something I could work from that works for me. And along the way, I figured, there might be other people like me who think that a journal should have more than just the daytime hours in it,
Yeah.
that maybe a complete planner should have a way of keeping score with how much of our plans we actually followed through and did. And that maybe, just maybe, there's a principle that says that that which gets measured or observed increases or improves.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
which gets measured or observed, recorded, reported, and rewarded increases or improves drastically. And believe me, I was in need of some of that drastic increase and improvement.
Yeah. Okay, you said something in a conversation that we had yesterday or day before, I can't remember. You were talking about how long it takes to learn something. Do you remember that part of our conversation?
Oh, yeah, yeah. A lot of
Okay.
people will say anywhere from 30 to 90 days to instill a
Mhm.
habit.
Help me, like, let's talk about that.
And that may be true, and that may very well be true, but learning happens instantaneously.
Mm-hmm.
There's a time where we didn't understand a thing, and then there's a time where we start to understand a thing. And
Yeah,
when that light comes on, that's
everything
exactly
changes.
how fast it takes is the
Right.
flip of a light switch.
And I can attest to that because I working with kids when I was working at the school. Like every time, like you'd be working with a kid and like he wasn't getting it, and then boom, like just like that. And it was so fast. And it was like, oh, okay, I get this now. And it was simply a matter of finding the right way to explain it to them. And I think that's
Isn't it
what
amazing?
you're developing. Yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
it amazing to see those lights come on?
Oh, yeah. It was wild.
I
Can you
mean,
speak to, like, how that was for you? Like, what was that like when the light popped on for you?
it was like all this electricity pent up that just went shorted to the ground,
Yeah.
and then the light came on, and I could relax. And I got to tell you, the money is nice, because everybody's got to live, everybody's got to pay bills.
Right.
But the main reason I do what I do is because I live for seeing those lights come on in other
Oh,
people's
yeah.
eyes.
Hell yeah. That
People who've been
relaxation.
misled by The Secret,
Yeah, go ahead.
people who've been misled by the law of attraction,
Oh, yeah.
people whose faith has not resulted in what they wanted. Yeah,
That's 100% me. 100%. I mean,
they're who I'm here to help.
I have manifested things, but I really believe it was me like speaking that out into the world. This is what I'm realizing. It was me speaking out what I wanted and then me following it up with the actions that it took to get there, right? It's not just, oh, I would like $1 million. It's like, okay, well, I want $1 million. How the fuck do I get there? And what boat am I going to get on in order to get there? You know what I mean?
And and you're bringing us directly into the latter three portions of the 6-week course.
There you
We
go.
talked about foundations, we talked about origins, we talked about destinations.
Hmm.
Part 4 is motivations. Now,
That's
while
so
running away
important.
from pain will move us, it's rather like bad gas in the tank. The
Right.
car will go, but it's
We're
not
very
going to be
moderate.
running real smooth.
Right.
Whereas a positive invitation forward toward something we actually want is a much cleaner fuel.
Sure. And I also think that just having that i- if we're only being motivated by external things, we're going to constantly be searching for stuff. Whereas if we can find that intrinsic motivation that this feels good and I want more of that which feels good, right? And we're just gonna keep going because it does
You
feel good, as
because
opposed
once it
to
stops hurting, or once we
yeah,
get okay with how bad it hurts, we stop.
right, right,
So you got that part exactly right.
yeah,
After motivations, then we finally talk about how, methods, modes, means, models,
yeah,
and
yeah,
how method affects condition, affects method, affects condition, affects method, affects condition. It's kind of a neat rabbit hole. And then
yeah.
the last part of it, the very last part, is intentionally co-creating, adjusting, now gleefully onward.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more about that adjusting part, because I think a lot of people kind of struggle in that department because we start something, we do it for a short period of time, and we're like, oh shit, this isn't working, and then we just stop rather than shifting and just making micro adjustments and then carrying on. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure can. Have you ever been on a commercial airline flight?
I have.
Did you know that those planes are off course more than 80% of the time they're in the air?
Holy shit. No?
And if a pilot were to let all those little tiny nudges off course add up, I mean, you could be flying from Boston and hoping to make it to Salt Lake and wind up pointed at Seattle.
Yeah.
So it's a constant
Yeah.
micro adjustment that takes into account the conditions and circumstances, but does not let them control the flight.
Interesting. Okay. So, if I were a person who um found the system that was working for a little while and then it stops because this is part of my neurodivergence, it tends to what is the word for that? I get bored. Maybe some of it is boredom and some of it is things happen in life and I get off my routine and then it's really complicated to get me back on the routine. So, how would you
Sometimes,
go ahead?
sometimes we get almost a new relationship energy with a new system. We
Yes,
have what we call a honeymoon period. We love it.
correct.
It works for us. We buy into it 100%. We're all in and it's just chugging right along.
Right.
Then we might hit a plateau. We
Uh-huh.
might get hit from outer space by a meteor that burns right through our homework.
Yep.
Any one of a million other factors that can shove us just the tiniest bit offline. And rather than pulling back onto line immediately, because we're focused on where we want to go, we get reminded of all the other times we let ourselves down
Yeah.
and it becomes impossible
Right. So
and
what
we give up again.
does your
There
program address
is,
that? Do you feel like
oh, yes,
okay, good.
very, very much so.
I like that a lot. Because that has been my problem more than not. Or I get in and like for instance, I know you and I have talked about this and I brought this up on the podcast, the 12-week year was all well and good. However, it really was overwhelming to me to try and set this goal, try and break it down, and then I worked myself into burnout. Um,
Have you read the book The Atomic Habits?
I have heard the abridged versions of it. I have not read the full book. It's on my list of books to get. But
I
go
had to
ahead.
break myself down below the atomic to the nuclear.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Tell me more about that.
And from there, from something as simple as taking a single deep diaphragmatic breath on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
What a lot of people don't understand about the word success is that no dictionary ever mentions magnitude or duration. A
Yeah.
success is the accomplishment of an intended action,
Period.
period.
Yes.
If you have to go all the way to a single breath, then that's where we have to go. Oddly enough,
Mm.
or perhaps not oddly at all, that's exactly where my system starts.
Just with breathing.
Grabbing a hold of something as simple as $0 invested required as possible, as zero woo, no faith required as possible.
Yeah.
You can't hold your breath beyond passing out. Your body is
Right.
going to breathe.
Right.
So why not learn how to do it properly? Why
Mm.
not learn how to regulate it? Why not grab the reins or the steering wheel or the ship's wheel or the
Yeah.
aircraft yoke, whatever metaphor you choose to grab, and start learning how to drive, how to steer,
That makes a
and then
ton of
take the
sense.
confidence that you build there into something else you might want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh.
I mean, really though, that's something I've been working on personally. It's just like taking 3 minutes every day to breathe. And if I can do that 3 minute breath every single day, like just that little habit, and it doesn't take long. I set a timer on my phone. I just sit here and I'm mindfully breathing. And there's
That's
just something really powerful
part
about that success
one.
happening every day.
That that's part one.
Yeah.
Part two is recording, reporting, and rewarding.
Yeah.
You keep score. If life is a game, who's keeping score? And here's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
hint,
Yeah.
it's not about money.
Sure.
It's about how much of your life you live on your purpose to your intention. There's
Well,
a lot
yeah.
of people that are happy just being clams and letting tide drift past them, and good for them. There's a lot
Sure.
of other people who realize that somebody up tide spilled some sewage and they don't necessarily want to put up with that.
Yeah. Well,
And so
yeah,
it
and I
becomes
think that generational curse thing comes into play somewhere. Like if you believe in that sort of thing, that we're gonna have this generational trauma right up until like I'm done. Like I'm not doing this, right? And I refuse to pass this on to my kid, or I refuse to put this on my significant other or whatever, right? Whatever the situation is, you're
the
doing
major part,
things. Go ahead, sorry.
the major part of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it is because I was there.
Yeah.
I was buried ribs deep in quicksand. I was up to my backside in alligators and forgot my job was to drain the swamp. I was frustrated like a bee bouncing off a glass window. I was weary, beyond tired.
Yeah.
And I was drifting between those states because I was asking people outside of me to prove my good qualities to myself. And it
Mm.
wasn't their job,
Mhm.
it was
Mhm.
mine.
Right.
And once I stepped up to that and started doing it, I realized at the bottom, at the very absolute bottom of the hole, beneath the weary, beneath the frustration, beneath everything that we might not enjoy feeling, fear, anger, whatever, beneath all of it is one single belief, one single feeling, and it's mistaken. That feeling lies to us when it tells us we are powerless.
Mhm.
And so, this entire course I built to prove to myself and everyone else who wants to join me that feelings are valid, like clouds.
Sure.
Like clouds, they can obscure our view of the sun. Also, like
Yeah,
clouds, if they gang up on us, they can storm and they can legitimately threaten our health and well being.
absolutely.
My job is to help see that the sun is still there behind the clouds,
Mm,
how to get lined up with it. If you got to sit in a storm cellar and breathe to get started, then that's what you got to do. But storms pass.
yeah. Recognizing that object permanence of the sun is still there, even though it's behind those clouds.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Recognizing that you're still there,
Yes.
grabbing a hold of the reins of your breath,
Right.
regulating the time to hit the brakes. When if you're one of those people who goes from 0 to 60, you're not going 0 to 60, you're going 59 to 60.
Yeah.
The time to hit the brakes is when you're going 58, 57,
Right.
55.
Right.
Now I have a clear spot. I can slow down further and learn how the brakes work.
Hmm. I've also taught my
And I don't
son
have to
that.
get close to
Oh,
60
sorry. Go ahead.
again.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is something
Once
I've
I
been
learn how my
working.
brakes work, I don't have to get close to 60 ever again.
Right. uh, this is something that I've been working with my kid on, is that understanding that it's not the first thought that comes, it's the second one that matters. It's the second one. What happens after that initial reaction, right? Because if we can train that second thought, we can eventually over time change what happens immediately, the first thought, right? But we have to train ourselves to get to that point, because that initial reaction just comes out of fear of judgment, fear of sadness, fear of pain, fear of something, right? But then that second thought we have is the more intentional thought. And the intentional thought is extremely important because it really, really shifts everything that we have and everything that we do. Are you still there?
How much more fun will it be when you have automatic faith in that second thought?
I mean,
I'm
right?
still here.
Okay.
How
Um,
much how 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 much more fun will it be when you can have automatic confidence that that second thought is going to bring you back online to where you want to go?
absolutely. Absolutely. And that you have control over that second thought.
Plus one good at a
That's
time.
the big thing, is
Yep.
he has control.
Yep.
I love it. All right, so we've got a few minutes left. I want to talk about, you already said that the program is 6 weeks. So tell me a little bit about like how it's going to be delivered and the cost, because I think that that's really important to cover.
We'll be delivering it every week starting 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, Wednesday, July 24th. Uh, every week for 6 weeks. The investment is $400.
Nice.
I am also accepting affiliates. So if you bring a friend, the rebate winds up being a discount.
Nice.
Um, and that commission is 40%. So if, say, Amber, you were to bring somebody from this podcast and they put Amber's name in the form under referred by, then Amber would receive 40% of that $400 as soon as it processes.
Excellent. I like that. I like the sound of that. Um, so you're gonna be delivering this first round live. And when does the cart
Yes, ma'am.
open and when does it close? Just so if people do want to sign up, there will be a link in the show notes. But if they want to sign up, when do they have to do that by?
It opens on July the 19th at the latest.
Okay, the 19th. Is that like at 12 p.m. or 11:59 p.m. on the 19th?
20, 23:59 Pacific Daylight Time. Yeah,
Okay,
the very
sounds
end of
good.
Friday for me.
Excellent. All right.
I am limiting spaces, so
Okay.
it may close before that.
Okay. That's good to know as well. All right. I have thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed this conversation and learning a lot more about your process and how you've put all this together. I think it's fantastic. I've used some of your products and I'm going to be having a review on those soon. But I've loved everything that I've touched, and getting to know you has been awesome and really taught me a lot about myself, and just helped me be a better person. So I really appreciate you, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for hosting me. I look forward to when you publish so that I can share the link with my friends.
Yeah,
And we'll go ahead and put some clarifying comments on it after it's up so
cool.
that people get a better understanding of how to find me and what else might be going on.
Yes, that sounds good. All right, dear. I
Thank you.
have a good day.